Be me, 34 years old, running one of the most successful independent blogs focused on gender politics and social justice. Wake up every morning and check my analytics before I even brush my teeth. 2 million monthly readers. Speaking engagements at 3 universities this semester alone. Brand partnerships with ethical clothing companies. Built this entire platform from nothing over the past 8 years. Started as just another voice in the void, sharing my observations about the world. Now I'm someone people actually listen to. Morning routine is sacred. Green tea, meditation app for exactly 12 minutes, then straight to my laptop. Scan the news for today's content. Some CEO made a tone-deaf comment about work-life balance being easier if you don't have kids. Perfect. Spend 2 hours crafting a thread about how men in power positions consistently fail to understand the structural barriers they benefit from. Each tweet carefully worded to maximize engagement. Learned over the years exactly which phrases make people share, which combination of statistics and personal anecdotes hits hardest. Posted at 9:30 a.m. because that's when my audience is most active. Watch the retweets climb. 300 in the first hour. Check my email while the numbers keep rising. Another invitation to speak at a conference. This one's in Portland. They're offering $2,000 plus expenses. Would have done this for free 5 years ago. Now it's literally my career. Remember when my mum asked when I was going to get a real job? Showed her my tax returns last year and she went quiet. Vindication tastes sweet. Spend the afternoon writing tomorrow's blog post, working on a series about everyday interactions that reinforce harmful patterns. This one's about how men interrupt women in professional settings. I have a whole database of examples I've collected from my own life and submissions from readers. The post practically writes itself. Includes statistics about speaking time in meetings. Add 3 personal anecdotes that illustrate the point. End with a call to action about holding people accountable. Schedule it to post at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Get a message from a colleague asking if I saw the response to my thread from this morning. Some guy with a large following quoted me and tried to, well, actually, the entire thing. Claims I'm taking the CEO's comments out of context. Claims I'm demonizing men for simply existing. Same tired arguments I've heard 1,000 times. Write a response thread. Methodically dismantling his position. Screenshot the most absurd parts of his tweets. My followers flood his mentions within minutes. He deletes the original thread by evening. Add this to my mental tally of small victories. This is the work. This is what change looks like. One correction at a time. One call out at a time. Evening time is for engagement. Spend 2 hours responding to comments, retweeting supporter content, building community. Someone shares. A story about her father who refuses to do any housework despite her mother working full-time, quote, tweet it with commentary about how these patterns perpetuate across generations. Another woman shares about a date who insisted on ordering for her. Add it to my collection of modern relationship red flags. Building a narrative, piece by piece, showing the patterns that people pretend don't exist. Some accounts I recognize try to argue in the replies. Same names that show up every time. Used to engage with them. Try to educate them. I learned years ago that's a waste of energy. Now, I just block and move on. My mental health matters more than convincing the willfully ignorant. Before bed, review my content calendar for the next 2 weeks. Podcast interview on Tuesday about my piece on workplace dynamics. Guest lecture at a college on Thursday about advocacy in digital spaces. Planning a major investigative post for next month about a tech company's internal culture. Have 3 sources. Willing to talk anonymously. This could be the biggest thing I've published. Fall asleep, thinking about the headline. The next morning starts the same way. Check analytics, check engagement, scan for content. Trending topic about a celebrity who made a joke that didn't land. The joke relied on outdated assumptions about gender roles. Write a piece about why "it's just a joke" has always been the defense mechanism for maintaining status quo. Include historical context about how humor has been used to normalize harmful ideas. Post goes viral. 15,000 shares by lunch. They get interviewed by an online magazine about the piece. They quote me in their article about the controversy. Suddenly, I'm part of the conversation at a national level. Phone won't stop buzzing with notifications. This is the 4th time this year something I wrote broke containment. Went from my usual audience to reaching hundreds of thousands. Exhilarating and exhausting in equal measure. Spend the rest of the week riding the wave. New followers flooding in. Some of them clearly just here to hate read, but engagement is engagement. The algorithm doesn't care about intent. Book sales for my self-published essay collection spike. Made more this week than I usually make in a month. Capitalism is a trap, but I still have rent to pay. Justify it by telling myself the platform lets me do more good. Reach more people. Shift more perspectives. The following months blur together. Summer conference circuit means I'm traveling constantly. Same hotel rooms in different cities. Same panels with slightly different titles. How to be an ally. Understanding privilege. Dismantling harmful structures. Say the same things in different words. Audiences nod and applaud. Collect my speaker fees and move to the next city. Write blog posts from airports and train stations. Content machine never stops. Following grows to 3 million. Get verified on social media. Finally, small blue checkmark feels like an achievement, even though I know it's meaningless. Means I made it to whatever threshold they consider notable. Fall brings a new project. Partnering with other writers on a collaborative site. Pooling our audiences. Sharing resources. My section focuses on everyday interactions and microaggressions. Becomes the most read section within a month. Other writers seem happy about it, but I sense tension. One of them makes a comment about how my pieces are a bit harsh. Suggests maybe I could consider multiple perspectives. Internally roll my eyes. This is always what happens when you speak clearly. People call it harsh because they're uncomfortable with directness. I don't soften my approach. Numbers prove I'm doing something right. Winter means less travel, more writing. Work on a long-form piece about how traditional concepts of masculinity harm everyone. Interview dozens of people. Collect stories about fathers who couldn't express emotion. Brothers who were told to man up. Partners who couldn't communicate vulnerability. Weave it into a narrative about systemic enforcement of rigid roles. Most proud of this piece when it publishes. Feels like my most important work. Reaches beyond my usual audience. Gets shared in spaces I normally don't penetrate. Some men even comment saying, it resonated. Feels like progress. Double down on this angle. Spend the next several months focused on how these patterns limit everyone, but always making clear where the patterns originate. Always pointing to the root structure. Always naming who benefits from the status quo. Get pushback from people saying, I'm being reductive. Ignore it. Complexity is often just an excuse for inaction. Year 6 of doing this work. Podcast launches. Weekly episodes. Interview format mixed with solo commentary. Becomes another platform. Another avenue. Same messages in a different medium. Listeners send in their experiences. Read them on air with my analysis. Create this communal space for processing. Feels powerful. Get an email from a man who says, my work ruined his relationship. His partner started listening to my podcast and realized she'd been accepting unacceptable behavior. She left him. He blames me. Wants me to know I'm destroying families. Delete it, but it sits in my mind for days. Tell myself that if the relationship couldn't survive basic examination, it deserved to end. Tell myself I'm helping people find their voices. Tell myself the anger directed at me is just proof I'm threatening the right people. Mostly believe it. Year 7. Invited to speak at an event alongside people I've admired for years. Activists who have been doing this work since before I knew the language for it. Imposter syndrome hits hard the night before. What if I'm just a blogger who got lucky? What if my analysis is shallow? What if I've been performing radicalism without understanding it? Give the speech anyway. Talk about accountability and patterns and structural change. Audience responds. Enthusiastically. Sell out of books at my table afterward. Woman in her 50s tells me I'm saying what she's thought for decades. Tells me I'm giving voice to experiences she thought were just hers. Remember why I do this. Keep going. Notice something shifting around month 8 of year 7. Harder to find fresh angles. Feel like I'm repeating myself. Audience doesn't seem to notice or care. They want the reinforcement. Want their perspectives validated. Want someone to articulate their frustrations. I'm happy to provide it. But privately, starting to feel hollow. Like I'm running on autopilot. Push the feeling down. Productivity doesn't leave room for doubt. Year 8 starts with a controversy. Old post of mine gets recirculated. One where I was particularly pointed about how men socialized in traditional masculinity are fundamentally unsafe. Wrote it after a bad breakup. Published it in anger. Stands out now as harsher than my usual work. People start asking if I still stand by it. Of course I do. Number thing. Say so publicly. Double down, even though something in my chest feels uncertain. Get invited to a debate format event. Initially refuse because I don't believe in debating human rights. Organizer convinces me by framing it as a conversation, not a debate. Other participant is a writer I vaguely know. He focuses on men's issues from what he calls a humanist perspective. Seems like MRA-light bullshit from his bio. Agree anyway, because the fee is substantial, and I'm confident. The week before the event, I actually read his work to prepare, expecting the usual nonsense about reverse sexism and men's rights. Find something more nuanced than anticipated. He writes about male vulnerability and emotional suppression, about fatherlessness and isolation, and suicide rates. Some of it overlaps with things I've said, but he doesn't connect it to larger structures the way I do. Still missing the point, but not as badly as I expected. The day of the event, I'm prepared with statistics and examples, ready to correct his incomplete analysis. We're in front of 300 people. Format is, each of us speaks for 15 minutes, then moderated discussion. He goes first. Talks about his own father, who worked himself to death, trying to provide, never learned to express love, except through sacrifice, would died of a heart attack at 53. Talks about his brother who struggled with depression and isolation. Bought into the idea that men don't ask for help. Eventually did ask for help, but found no resources. No support groups, no awareness, no cultural permission. Attempted suicide twice before succeeding on the 3rd try. Room is silent. He's not crying, but his voice carries weight. He talks about how when he tried to process this publicly, he was told his pain was privileged. He told that men's problems are men's creation, so men need to fix them alone. Told to sit down and listen and make space, which he tried to do, but couldn't find the space for his own grief anywhere. Describes, reading my work specifically, how it helped him understand some things about structural forces, but also how it made him feel like his brother's death was somehow deserved. Like the fact that his brother was male meant his suffering was less important, or worse, that it was karmic justice. Quotes a line from one of my older posts directly, one I barely remember writing. Something about how men's emotions have always mattered more than women's lives. In context, I was talking about how male anger is taken seriously while female fear is dismissed. But he read it while grieving his brother, and it told him his grief was part of the problem. My turn to speak. Have my prepared remarks ready. Statistics about violence and economic disparity and political representation. All the structural realities that contextualize everything. Start delivering them. Voice sounds mechanical to my own ears. Look out at the audience. See men and women both. Some nodding along with me. Some looking uncomfortable. One woman in the 3rd row is crying. Older man in the back has his arms crossed, jaw tight. Keep delivering my points. Each one lands exactly as intended. Can feel the room polarizing. People choosing sides. This is familiar. This is every online thread translated to physical space. Get to my conclusion about collective accountability. About how individual pain doesn't negate structural reality. It's a good conclusion. I've used variations of it dozens of times. Applause is strong from half the room. Other half barely claps. Moderated discussion starts. Moderator asks him to respond to my points about structural inequality. He acknowledges all of it. Doesn't disagree with the basic facts. Just asks where individual men who are suffering fit into my analysis. Asks if there's room for complexity. Then, automatic response kicks in. Start explaining how individual exceptions don't disprove patterns. How personal hardship doesn't exempt anyone from their position in larger systems. How men's pain is often weaponized against women's progress. All things I genuinely believe. All things I've said before. But watching his face while I say them, seeing him actually hear me, something feels wrong. He doesn't get angry, just nods slowly and says, "That's what he thought I'd say." Asks me directly if I think his brother's life mattered. "Of course," I say. "All lives matter," he says, with a sad smile. Catches me in the verbal trap. Audience reacts. Some laugh, some gasp. Moderator tries to move on, but I'm flustered. Spend the rest of the discussion regaining ground. Make my points, cite my sources, maintain my position. Event ends to mixed applause. People swarm both of us afterward. My supporters want to tell me I destroyed him. Tell me I stayed strong against manipulative emotional tactics. Tell me not to fall for the tears and personal stories. Structural analysis is what matters. I accept their validation, but feel empty. Watch across the room as people talk to him. See men crying while shaking his hand. See women hugging him. He's not performing for them. Just present. Just listening. Drive home in silence. Phone full of notifications about clips from the event. My followers declaring victory. His followers saying, "I proved his point." Everyone saw what they wanted to see. Lie awake that night replaying it. Keep hearing him ask if his brother's life mattered. Of course it mattered. Never said it didn't. My work has never been about individual lives not mattering. It's about patterns, structures, systems. Individual grief is valid, but it doesn't change the data. Almost convince myself. Next morning, check my email. Message from someone who was at the event. Man, in his 40s, writes that he's been reading my work for 2 years. It helped him recognize some of his own problematic behaviors. He's worked on being better, more aware, more accountable. But last night, he heard me speak, and something broke. Realized that in my framework, he'll always be the problem. No matter what he does, his maleness makes him suspect. He's tired of trying to be good enough. Tired of apologizing for existing. Not angry, just defeated. Going to step back from trying. Says thank you anyway for the awareness, even if it came with shame. Delete the email. Sit staring at my laptop. Tell myself he's misunderstanding. That's not what my work says. I've always acknowledged good men exist. Always said this isn't about individual men. Go back through my archives to find examples. Search for posts where I made that distinction clear. Find some. But also find so many where the language is broad. Where men do this and men are that could absolutely be read as all men. Where my anger, justified or not, painted with wide brushes. Tell myself context matters. Tell myself anyone reading in good faith understands. But what about people reading in grief, in confusion, in genuine desire to understand? Spend the day distracted. Supposed to write a new post. Can't. Focus. Keep thinking about that man's brother. About my own brother, actually. He haven't thought about him in years in this context. He's one of the good ones, I've always told myself. But what does that mean? Good compared to what? Good despite being male. Good as an exception. Call him for the first time in months. Just to talk. He's surprised, but happy to hear from me. Asks about my work. I deflect. Ask about his life instead. He talks about his job, his partner, his friends. mentions struggling with anxiety. Says he finally started therapy. Took him years to go, because he felt like he should be able to handle it alone. He felt weak for needing help. I ask why he felt that way. He laughs. Says, the usual guy stuff. Not allowed to have feelings. Supposed to be strong. All that. Asks if I remember Dad. Of course, I remember Dad. He was terrible at emotions, my brother says. Loved us, but had no idea how to show it, except by working constantly. Came from his dad, apparently. Same. Pattern. My brother is trying to break it. Trying to be different. It's hard, though, because there's no model. And when he looks for resources, or community, it's either toxic masculine stuff about being alpha, or spaces where he feels like he's inherently the villain. He says this casually, not accusatory. Doesn't know the second category describes my work. Or maybe he does, and he's being kind. We talk for an hour. After hanging up, I sit in silence. My brother is a good person, genuinely kind, working on himself, trying to break cycles, and he feels like there's nowhere for him. Try to write that night. Start a post about the importance of maintaining boundaries, about not letting individual stories distract from systemic realities. Get 3 paragraphs in and stop. It feels like I'm trying to convince myself. Week passes. Can't shake the feeling. Go through my most popular posts. Read them as if I'm my brother. As if I'm that man whose brother died. As if I'm any of the men who wrote to me over the years. The angry ones I dismissed as fragile. The hurt ones I categorized as missing the point. The defeated ones I saw as casualties of necessary discomfort. Read my own words, telling them their socialization makes them unsafe. Their gender makes them suspect. Their pain is less important because of their privilege. Each individual claim I could defend, could contextualize, could explain. But the cumulative message, the pattern of my own rhetoric, feels brutal. Start noticing things differently. Man on the subway looks exhausted. Reading something on his phone, stress evident. Old me would have thought about how men's emotions get prioritized. How tiredness is universal, but men expect accommodation. Now, I just see a tired person. No story, no assumption, just a human. Meeting with other activists to plan an event. One of the guys in the group offers an idea. Gets talked over by 2 women. Offers it again. Same thing happens. Finally stops trying. Looks familiar. It's what I've described happening to women 1,000 times. Pointed out. Say we should hear his idea. Someone jokes that he doesn't need me to defend him. The patriarchy does that already. Everyone laughs. He laughs too, but leaves the meeting early. His idea never gets heard. Month passes. Still writing, still posting. But everything feels different. Second-guessing every sentence. Seeing complexity where I used to see clarity. My engagement starts dropping. People notice the shift in tone. Comments asking if I'm okay. Some accusing me of softening. Of being influenced by male tears. Of losing my edge. Try to course correct. Write something with the old fire. Piece about accountability and calling out harm. Feels performative. Post it anyway. Comments are enthusiastic. This is the content we need. Don't let them silence you. Stay strong. Feel like a fraud. Get contacted by a journalist working on a story about online activism. Wants to interview me about building a platform. About sustaining advocacy work. Agree, because it's good publicity. Interview happens over video call. She asks standard questions about my origin story. What radicalized me? What keeps me going? Answer on autopilot. Then she asks if I ever worry about the impact of public callouts. Whether shaming is an effective tool for change. Freeze. Hear myself saying all the right things. About how comfort is the enemy of growth. How people who cause harm need to be held accountable. How silence is complicity. She's nodding and typing. But I'm listening to myself and hearing something else. Hearing years of justified anger. Years of valid frustration turned into a weapon, used broadly, used constantly, used against people who maybe didn't deserve it. Interview ends. Sit staring at the screen after she's gone. Open my blog dashboard. 8 years of posts. Hundreds of thousands of words. How many of them were precise and necessary? How many were just anger looking for a target? Spend hours reading? Randomly. Find good work. Thoughtful analysis. Important points. Necessary conversations. But also find cruelty. Find assumptions. Find lack of charity. Find exactly what I've always criticized, just aimed in a different direction. One post about a news story. Man falsely accused of harassment. Accusation later recanted. My take at the time was that false accusations are statistically rare, so this doesn't change anything, which is true. But I didn't say anything about him, about that specific person whose life was damaged. Just used his story as a data point. Another post about a study on workplace behavior. Used it to make claims about male entitlement. Comments full of men trying to explain their own experiences. I dismissed all of them. Told them their individual experiences don't disprove data, which is true. But I was doing the same thing, using data to dismiss individual experiences, just when it suited my narrative. Feel sick. Physically sick. What have I been doing? Who have I been hurting? Told myself it was necessary. Told myself it was justice. Told myself the targets were structures, not people. But structures are made of people. And people were reading my words. People were being shaped by them. And that man who emailed saying he's giving up trying. How many others like him? Quietly reading. Quietly internalizing. Quietly learning that they're fundamentally broken. That their efforts will never be enough. That their gender makes them suspect. Think about the event again. The man talking about his brother, how my work made him feel. His grief was invalid. Never meant that. Never wanted that. But intent doesn't erase impact. Taught that principle to my audience 1,000 times. When does it apply to me? Don't sleep that night or the next. Keep thinking in circles. Try to find the flaw in my reasoning. Try to get back to the certainty. Can't find it. The foundation cracked, and now I can't unsee it. Week later, force myself to write. Need to process this. Somehow. Start a post trying to articulate the nuance. How structural critique is valid, but individual application is complex. How patterns are real, but people are more than patterns. Read it back, and it sounds like apologism. Like I'm making excuses. Delete it. Try again. Same result. Can't find language that holds both truths. That systems are real, and people are individuals. That critique is necessary, and grace is necessary. That gender shapes experience, but doesn't determine worth. Spend 2 weeks barely posting. Audience notices. Messages asking what's wrong. Some supportive, some demanding, some accusing me of selling out, of being compromised, of abandoning the work. Sit with my laptop open to a blank post for hours. Cursor blinking. Need to say something. Need to be honest. But honesty means admitting I've been wrong. Means acknowledging harm. Means losing the platform I built. Losing the community. Losing my identity. This work has been everything for 8 years. It's my career, my purpose, my social life. Who am I if I'm not this? Another week passes. Get invited to speak at an event next month. Topic is about maintaining conviction in advocacy. Accept the invitation. Spend days preparing. Every draft feels wrong. Can't give the speech they're expecting. Can't perform certainty. I don't feel. 3 days before the event, withdraw. Cite health reasons. Not entirely a lie. Haven't been sleeping. Barely eating. Apartment is a mess. Can't focus on anything. Just this gnawing awareness that I've caused harm. Hurt people I never meant to hurt. Simplified people I should have seen as complex. Mom calls, asks how I'm doing. Hear myself say, I'm fine. She doesn't believe me. Asks what's really going on. Try to explain. Stumble through it. My work, my platform, realizing I've been wrong about things. She's quiet for a long time. Then asks if I remember when I was in high school. I had that teacher who humiliated students he thought weren't trying hard enough. I hated him. Came home crying more than once. Swore I'd never be like him. Never use power to make people feel small. Mum asks quietly if I kept that promise. Can't answer. We sit in silence on the phone. She tells me it takes courage to recognize when you've gone too far. More courage to admit it. Hang up and cry for the first time in years. Not elegant crying. Full breakdown on my kitchen floor. For the people, I hurt. For the certainty, I lost. For the version of myself I have to let go of. Next morning, open my blog. Start writing. Not planned, not drafted, just raw. Write about the event with the man whose brother died. About reading my own words through different eyes. About realizing that structural critique became personal attack. About how I generalized when I should have specified. About how I dismissed pain I should have acknowledged. Write about my brother. About the men who wrote to me over the years. The ones I categorized as fragile or resistant, when maybe they were just a hurt. Write that I was wrong. Not about everything. Structural inequality is real. Patterns of harm are real. The need for accountability is real. But I was wrong to treat individuals as symbols. Wrong to use my platform for shame instead of education. Wrong to assume the worst. Wrong to generalize all men as oppressors. Wrong to confuse my anger with justice. Write until my hands hurt. Read it back. It's messy and vulnerable and completely different from my usual work. Shows doubt where I usually show certainty. Shows regret where I usually show righteousness. Publish it before I can change my mind. Step away from the computer. Can't watch the reaction in real time. Go for a walk. First time, I've left my apartment in days. Outside feels overwhelming. Too bright, too loud. Walk anyway. No destination. Just moving. And think about what comes next. If this ends my career. If my audience abandons me. If I lose everything I built. Realize I don't know who I am without this. Spent 8 years being the person who had answers, who called out harm, who stood firm. What's left when that's gone? Walk for hours. Eventually go home. Laptop still open to the post. Hundreds of comments already. Don't read them. Close the laptop. Lie down. Sleep for 12 hours straight. Wake up to thousands of notifications. Deep breath. Start reading. Comments are split. Longtime followers saying, I betrayed them. Saying, I'm capitulating to patriarchy. Saying, this is what happens when you center men's feelings. Others saying they appreciate the honesty, that they notice the shift and respect the admission. Men writing to say, thank you. Women writing to say they felt the same way but were afraid to say it. Also women saying, I'm setting feminism back decades. Men saying this proves everything they always thought. Everyone has an interpretation. Everyone knows what this means. Most of them are wrong, or right in ways I didn't intend. Can't control the narrative anymore. It's out there. I'm out. There. More vulnerable than I've ever been publicly. Next few days are chaos. Articles written about my post. Some sympathetic, some critical. Most reducing it to a soundbite. Feminist recants extreme views. Activist admits she was wrong about men. Prominent blogger reverses position on gender. All true in a way. All missing the complexity. Ironic, given my whole realization was about seeing complexity. Get asked to do interviews. Decline all of them. Not ready to perform this. Not ready to have my transformation packaged for content. Need time to actually understand what I think now. Spend weeks reading. Not gender theory this time. Just novels, poetry, anything with humanity in it. Stories about people in their specificity. Not as representatives of categories. Remember what it's like to see individuals. My brother calls. Says he read my post. Asks if I'm okay. Tell him honestly that I don't know. He tells me about his therapist, how one thing they work on is holding multiple truths. That he can be privileged in some ways and struggling in others. That his gender shapes his experience but doesn't define his value. That systems are real and his individual life matters. Both things true. Always have been. Ask him if he's ever read my work before the recent post. Long pause. Admits he read some of it years ago. It hurt. Felt like I saw him as the enemy. I stopped reading to protect himself. Still loved me, but from a distance. I didn't know how to tell me. Apologize. Really apologize. Not the performative kind I've written 100 times. Genuine recognition of harm I caused someone I love. He's quiet, then says he forgives me. Says he's proud of me for the post. Knows it couldn't have been easy. Cry again after we hang up. Different tears this time. Month passes. Post less frequently. When I do write, it's different. More questions. Fewer declarations. More nuance. Less certainty. Engagement drops. Lose about 30% of my followers. The ones who wanted the old content. The ones who needed the enemy clearly defined. Surprising numbers stay though. Some say they appreciate the evolution. Say they were feeling similarly but couldn't articulate it. Build a different kind of community. Smaller but more thoughtful. Get an email from the man who spoke at that event. The one whose brother died. Says he read my post. Thanked me for it. Says it doesn't fix everything, but it matters. Offers to talk sometime if I want. Not as opponents, but as people trying to figure this out. Except, we have a video call. Awkward at first, but end up talking for 2 hours. About grief and anger and the stories we tell. About how pain makes us simplify. Makes us look for someone to blame. Makes us tribal. Both of us did it in different directions. Both of us hurt people. Both of us trying to do better. End the call feeling less alone. Keep writing. Keep evolving. Keep sitting with discomfort. 3 months after the post, do my first interview. Small podcast, friendly, host. Talk about the journey, about recognizing harm, about the difference between structural analysis and individual judgment, about learning to hold complexity. It's not a clean narrative, no dramatic conversion moment, just slow, painful realization. Host asks if I regret my previous work. Think about it carefully. Some of it, yes. The cruelty, the generalizations, the lack of grace. But some of it was necessary. Naming patterns is important. Holding systems accountable matters. I just lost the balance. Let anger become identity. Let righteousness become weapon. Say all this on the podcast. It airs and gets shared widely, more than my recent posts have been. People hungry for this conversation, apparently. Hungry for someone to model uncertainty, to show evolution, or maybe just hungry for drama. Hard to tell sometimes. 6 months later, working on a book, not a manifesto this time, more like collected essays, holding the tension between structural reality and individual humanity, between necessary critique and necessary grace, between anger and empathy. Don't know if anyone will publish it, don't know if anyone will read it, write it anyway. Need to process this for myself. Need to document the journey. Need to offer something better than what I built before. Think about that woman at my speech who told me I was giving voice to her experiences. I hope she's okay. I hope my evolution doesn't feel like betrayal, but also can't live for her approval anymore. Can't live for anyone's approval. Have to figure out what I actually believe. stripped of performance, stripped of platform. Just me and the questions. Year after the post, analytics show I'm back to about half my peak audience. Different demographic though. Less ideological warriors. More people genuinely wrestling with questions. Engagement is deeper, even if it's less viral. Conversations, instead of battles. Okay with this. Better than okay. This is what I needed. What the work needed. Get a message from. Someone who read my old work and it changed her life. Helped her leave an abusive relationship and gave her language for her experience. She's concerned. My new position means I'm saying abuse isn't real, that I'm backing down from protecting women. Write back carefully. Explain that recognizing individual men's humanity doesn't erase violence against women, that holding complexity doesn't mean abandoning protection, that I can acknowledge I overgeneralized without reversing entirely. She seems satisfied, but I sit with the exchange for days. This is the tightrope now, honoring past truth while acknowledging past harm. Neither erasing what I got right nor defending what I got wrong. Exhausting, necessary. Some days want to give up. Delete everything, start over with a new name, write about gardening or travel or anything but this. But that feels like abandonment, like causing harm then running from accountability. So, I stay. Keep writing. Keep evolving. Keep sitting with the discomfort of being publicly wrong. Of changing my mind where everyone can see. Year and a half later, invited back to the university where I spoke before. Different event. Different topic. Evolving perspectives in activism. Accept nervously. Prepare for weeks. Speech is about intellectual humility. About the dangers of certainty. About how the same tools that fight oppression can become oppressive. About learning to see people instead of categories. Deliver it to a half-full room. Used to pack auditoriums. Now it's maybe 100 people. Most of them students. Question period is intense. One student asks if I'm saying feminism is wrong. Explain carefully that I'm saying I did feminism wrong. That critique, without humanity, is just cruelty. That movements need both conviction and doubt. Another asks if I was pressured to recant by men's rights activists. Almost laugh. To explain that the pressure came from within. From recognizing the distance between my values and my actions. From seeing harm I caused. Older woman in the back, maybe a professor, asks what I'd say to my younger self. Think about it. Would say that anger is valid, but not sufficient. That being right about structures doesn't excuse being wrong about people. That the work matters, but how you do the work matters more. Would say to listen more. Assume less. See complexity as wisdom, not weakness. Room is quiet. Feel exposed, but also free. This is the truth. Messy and incomplete, but mine. Afterward, several students want to talk. One of them, young man, maybe 20, says his older sister used to read my blog religiously. Quotes my stuff all the time about toxic masculinity. Made him feel broken, like something was fundamentally wrong with him for being male. I started to believe it. Got depressed, isolated, and then read my recent work. Helped him see he's not inherently damaged. That he can work on harmful patterns without accepting that he's harmful. Starting to rebuild. Wanted to say thank you in person. Hug him before I can think about it. Feel him crying against my shoulder. 20 years old and carrying this weight. Weight I helped put there. Tell him I'm sorry. So sorry. He says it's okay. I say it's not, but I'm trying to do better. He nods and leaves. Sit in the empty auditorium after everyone's gone. Think about all the young men who read my work over the years. The ones who internalized it. Who tried to be better but felt like they could never be good enough. The damage I did in the name of justice. Cry again. Seems like I'm always crying now. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe that's what I needed. To feel, instead of just analyze. to hurt for the hurt I caused, to carry the weight, drive home in the dark. Past construction workers finishing a late shift, group of men in hard hats, exhausted. Old me would have had thoughts about labor and gender, about who does dangerous work and why, about structural patterns, all still true. But tonight, I just see tired people, people with lives and families, and struggles I know nothing about. People who are more than symbols, more than data points, just people, same as everyone, same as me. Get home and open my laptop. Read a submission in my inbox. Woman writing about her son. He's 15, struggling. Found my old blog posts, and they confirmed his worst fears about himself, that he's inherently toxic, that masculinity is poison, that he should suppress who he is. She's watched him withdraw, stop engaging, go quiet. She's scared, begging me to write something for boys like him, something that acknowledges their humanity. Write back immediately. Tell her, I'll try. Spend the next week working on a post, writing to that 15-year-old boy, to my brother, to the man whose brother died. To every person I flattened into a category. Write about how patterns are real, but people are individuals. How working on harmful behaviors doesn't mean you're inherently harmful. How masculinity itself isn't toxic, even though some expressions of it are. How being male doesn't make you an oppressor. How you can acknowledge your privilege without accepting guilt for existing. Edit it dozens of times. Trying to get the balance right. Honoring structural reality while seeing individual humanity. Publish it on a Saturday morning, titled, To the Boys and Men I Failed to See. Step away from the computer. Go for a walk. Don't check responses for hours. When I finally do, it's overwhelming. Thousands of comments. Men writing about crying while reading it. Mothers sharing it with their sons. Women saying they needed to hear this for the men in their lives. Also, plenty of criticism. Accusations of backsliding, of pandering, of letting patriarchy win. Some of my oldest followers saying goodbye, saying, I'm not the voice they need anymore. Watch the community split in real time. Painful, but also clarifying. This is the cost of evolution. This is what growth looks like. Losing people who need you to stay the same. Next few months, settle into a new rhythm. Smaller platform, different focus. Less viral moments. More meaningful exchanges. Write about navigating complexity. About holding multiple truths. About doing justice work without dehumanizing anyone. It's harder work. Less satisfying in some ways. No clear enemies, no simple answers, but feels truer. Feels like actual progress instead of performance. Quite, get contacted by someone wanting to do a long-form profile about my transformation. Initially refuse. I don't want to be a cautionary tale. Don't want this reduced to a narrative arc. They persist. As promised to handle it with nuance. Eventually, agree. Interview process takes weeks. Digging into my history, my evolution, my current thinking. Hard to revisit. Hard to see the progression laid out. Article comes out, titled The Unraveling, How One Feminist Blogger Learned to Question Certainty, Mostly Fair, captures the complexity. Includes criticism from former followers. Includes gratitude from people who felt harmed by my old work. Includes my own ongoing uncertainty. Goes viral in a different way than my old content. Shared in think piece circles. Discussed in academic spaces. Becomes a case study in online activism. Weird to be observed like this. To have my failure and growth picked apart publicly. But also, maybe necessary. Maybe this is the accountability I owe. To be the example of what not to do. And what to do when you realize you've caused harm. 2 years after the initial post, speaking at a conference. Panel about accountability in activism. Sitting next to people I respect. One of them asks, during prep, how I live with the guilt of knowing my work hurt people. Think about it. The guilt is constant. Every day, I remember something I wrote, someone I dismissed, some assumption I made. Can't undo it. Can only try to do better going forward. Can only be honest about the harm. Can only keep evolving. Say this on the panel. Someone in the audience asks if I think my confession was enough. If apology absolves impact. Answer immediately. No. Apology is just the beginning. The real work is changing behavior. Using my platform differently. Being consistently better. That's a lifelong project. I'm 2 years in. I've got decades to go. If I'm lucky. Another audience member, older black woman, stands up. Says she appreciates my evolution, but has concerns. Points out that white women's tears have always been powerful. Asks how I'm making sure this isn't just another way to center myself. Another way to make my learning process everyone else's burden. The question lands hard. Because she's right. Even my apology, my evolution, my public processing, it's still taking up space. Still asking people to witness and validate my growth. Thank her for the question. Admit I don't have a good answer. Still working on that. Still learning to step back. To do the work without demanding recognition for it. She nods. Doesn't look entirely satisfied, but acknowledges the honesty. Panel ends. Feel shaken. Realize how much further I have to go. How my blind spots have blind spots. Evening alone in a hotel room. Reflecting on the day. Think about where I started. That morning 8 years ago. Checking analytics. Measuring my worth in engagement. Performing certainty. Building a platform on righteous anger. Think about where I am now. Smaller platform. Less certainty. Trying to do right by people instead of being right. Still failing. Regularly. Still learning. I don't know if this counts as success. Lost most of my following. Lost my clear identity. Lost my sense of purpose. But gained something harder to measure. Gained actual relationships with people I used to see as categories. Gained intellectual humility. Gained the ability to hold complexity. Gained my brother back. Gained sleep at night. Mostly. Open my laptop. Draft of tomorrow's post. About the limits of ideology. About staying human while fighting systems. About how the tools of liberation can become tools of harm. Read it over. It's good. Not viral good. Not righteously angry good. But true good. Honest good. Publish it. Close the laptop. Lie in the dark. Think about that 15-year-old boy. Hope he's okay. Hope my new work reaches him. Hope he knows he's not broken. Think about all the boys and men I taught to see themselves as problems. Carry that weight. We'll carry it. Always. That's appropriate. That's what accountability means. Not performing guilt, but actually changing. Actually doing better. Actually seeing people fall asleep. Wake up to modest engagement on the post. Couple hundred shares. Dozen thoughtful comments. No viral moment. No controversy. Just people engaging with ideas. This is enough. This is better. Years of building a platform taught me how to reach people. 2 years of unraveling taught me what's worth saying. Combination of both is the work now. Slower, smaller, more careful, more human. To check my email. Note from that mother whose son read my old work. Says she shared my recent post with him. They talked for hours. Really talked. First time in months. He's still struggling, but feels less alone. Feels less inherently broken. She thanks me. Says this is what she needed from me all along. Not anger on her behalf, but humanity for her son. Close my eyes. Breathe. This is why. This is the work. Not perfect. Never will be. But better. More honest. More whole. Took 8 years to build something on certainty. Took 2 years to begin rebuilding on doubt. Will take the rest of my life to get it right. If I'm lucky. If I stay humble. If I keep listening. If I keep seeing people, not categories, not symbols, not representatives of systems, just people, complex and flawed and worthy, like me, like everyone, open a new document, start writing. Not for an audience this time, just for me. Processing, learning, growing. The cursor blinks. I begin.